Welcome to UniverseQuests. I hope you all are doing great today.
25 of the most revolutionary inventions that shaped our world. From ancient tools to the latest digital advances, these human inventions changed the world and transformed life on Earth. Humans are a very creative species. We stood on 2 feet from the very first day. We've been building things, but some are more important in the grander scheme of history than others. Human inventions and technologies have shaped civilizations and transformed life on Earth. As expectations and capabilities evolve, each generation cultivates its innovative thinkers. From the invention of the wheel to the development of the Mars rover, many of these inventions have been genuinely revolutionary, even if that wasn't always apparent then. Most significant inventions don't have just one inventor. Instead, they have been developed separately by many people, or many people have had a hand in their evolution, from basic concepts to valuable inventions. Number 25. Use of condoms, the evolution of birth control. The prevention of pregnancy has a surprisingly long history. The history of contraceptives dates back to around 1500 BC, where records indicate that ancient Egyptian women would mix honey, sodium carbonate, and crocodile dung into a thick, solid paste called pessary and insert it into their vaginas before intercourse. However, many researchers believe old-world birth control methods are ineffective and possibly life-threatening. The first known form of condom, from a goat bladder, was used in Egypt around 3000 BC. In 1844 AD, Charles Goodyear patented the vulcanization of rubber, which led to the mass production of rubber condoms. In 1914 AD, with a monthly newsletter called The Woman Rebel, Margaret Sanger, a nurse and sex educator from New York State, first coined the term birth control. Later, Carl Djerassi successfully created a progesterone pill that could block ovulation. The pill was approved for sale in 1960 and launched an international revolution that allowed women to determine when they would have children and freed them from unplanned pregnancies, which could derail their lives. Number 24. The compass ranks up there with the most important inventions. Some believe this relatively modern invention was first created for fortune-telling and geomancy. It was only later that it was adapted for navigational purposes. The Chinese most likely invented the earliest compasses, similar to those we use today, around 200 BC. Earlier forms of the compass were made of lodestone, a naturally occurring form of the mineral magnetite. Evidence suggests civilizations may have also used lodestones for similar purposes as early as the 6th century BCE. At some point, possibly around 1050 AD, people began suspending the lodestones so they could move freely and use them for navigation. A description of a magnetized needle and its use among sailors occurs in a European book written in 1190 AD, so by that time it is likely that using a needle as a compass was commonplace. Number 23. The modern world wouldn't exist without the automobile. Some people credit the birth of the modern car to the German inventor Carl Benz, who patented his Benz patent motorwagen in 1886. However, automobiles had been in the works since 1769, when Nicholas Joseph Cugnot developed the first steam-powered automobile capable of human transportation. Over the years, many people contributed to the development of the automobile and its constituent parts. At the beginning of the 20th century, Henry Ford devised ways to make cars cheap enough for most people to buy. These techniques then became standard, with General Motors and Chrysler following suit. The history of the automobile reflects a worldwide evolution. Many people had to work together to make the internal combustion engine and the other parts that make automobiles. Dozens of spin-off industries were also involved, including oil and steel. Number 22. The steam engine was a true revolution in technology. a Spanish mining administrator named Jerónimo de Ayans is thought to have been the first to develop a steam engine. He patented a device that used steam power to pump water from mines. However, Englishman Thomas Savery, an engineer and inventor, is usually credited with developing the first practical steam engine in 1698 AD. His device was used to draw water from flooded mines using steam pressure. In developing his engine, Savery used principles set forth by Denis Papin, a French-born British physicist who invented the pressure cooker. In 1711, another Englishman, Thomas Newcomen, developed an improvement in the engine. Later, in 1781 AD, James Watt, a Scottish instrument maker employed by Glasgow University, added a separate condenser to Newcomen's engine, which allowed the steam cylinder to be maintained at a constant temperature, dramatically improving its functionality. He later developed a double-rotating steam engine that, by the 1800s, would power trains, mills, factories, and numerous other manufacturing operations. Number 21. Crude oil distillates fuel the modern world. Without gasoline, there would be no transportation industry as we know it today. Gasoline is a fuel derivative of crude oil, and it is called gas in the United States and petrol in many other English-speaking places worldwide. More specifically, petrol is a transparent, crude, oil-derived liquid used as a fuel in internal combustion engines. Interestingly, gas was initially discarded as an unwanted byproduct. Before the discovery and commercialization of gasoline, the fuel of choice was a blend of alcohol, usually methanol, and turpentine, called camphene. Later, this would be primarily replaced by kerosene. The first oil well dug in the US in 1859 in Pennsylvania refined the oil to produce kerosene. Although the distillation process also produced gasoline, this was discarded as a byproduct. The method of distillation refining only produced about 20% of gasoline from a given amount of crude petroleum. However, once it was discovered that the internal combustion engine ran best on light fuels, like gasoline, the refining process was refined. In 1913, a new process began to be used to produce gasoline more easily using chemical catalysts and pressure. The new thermal cracking process doubled the efficiency of refining and made refining gasoline more practical. Number 20. Locomotives have proved to be powerful tools. Locomotives can carry a large number of passengers with comfort, while also being able to haul heavy loads over long distances. While tracks, or rails, have been used for carrying wagons since the 16th century, the history of modern train travel is just over 200 years old. Richard Trevithick, a British engineer, built the first full-scale working railway steam locomotive in the United Kingdom in 1804. It used high-pressure steam to drive the engine. On February 21, 1844, the world's first steam-powered railway journey occurred when Trevithick's unnamed steam locomotive hauled a train along the tramway in Wales. However, Trevithick's locomotives were too heavy for the cast-iron plateway track then in use. The commercial appearance of train networks came in the 1820s. In 1821, George Stephenson was appointed as an engineer for the construction of the Stockton and Darlington Railway in the northeast of England, which was opened as the first public steam-powered railway in 1825. In 1829, he built his famous steam engine, Rocket, and the age of railways began. Number 19. The invention of the airplane was a quantum leap in tech. On December 17, 1903, Wilbur and Orville Wright achieved the first powered, sustained, and controlled flight. This was a day that would be remembered for all time. Flying machines had been dreamt up since Leonardo da Vinci's time and likely long before. But thanks to the work of countless inventors over several centuries, the Wright brothers became the first to achieve controlled powered flight. Beginning with their work on gliders, the duo's success laid the foundation for modern aeronautical engineering by demonstrating what was possible. Number 18. The mastery of electricity was a tremendous feat. Electricity has become a basic need for daily life and is another essential invention. Of course, electricity has been around all along, but the practical applications to effectively use it first needed to be invented. Alessandro Volta is generally credited with discovering the first practical battery. He invented his Voltaic pile in 1799. It consisted of discs of two different metals, such as copper and zinc, separated by cardboard soaked in brine. In 1831, British scientist Michael Faraday discovered the basic principles of electricity generation. The electromagnetic induction discovery revolutionized energy usage. The rise in electricity usability is now the backbone of modern industrial society. Number 17. The battery is another great invention. The earliest device based on the principles of what would become the battery may date back to the Parthian Empire, around 2,000 years old. The old battery consisted of a clay jar filled with a vinegar solution, into which an iron rod surrounded by a copper cylinder was inserted. This device might have been used to electroplate silver, but as mentioned in the previous entry, the inventor of the first electric battery was Alessandro Volta, who developed the pile battery. After that, in 1800 AD, William Cruikshank designed the trough battery, an improvement on Alessandro Volta's voltaic pile. Batteries had a breakthrough in 1859 AD with the invention of the first rechargeable battery based on lead acid by the French physician Gaston Planté. The nickel-cadmium Niingdi battery was introduced in 1899 by Waldemar Jungner. Number 16. The printing press democratized information. Before the internet's ability to spread information, the printing press helped information travel around the globe. German goldsmith Johannes Gutenberg is often credited with inventing the printing press around 1436 AD, although he was far from the first to automate the book printing process. Woodblock printing in China dates back to the 9th century, and Korean bookmakers were printing with movable metal type a century before Gutenberg. Johannes Gutenberg's machine, however, improved on the already existing presses and introduced them to the West. By 1500 AD, Gutenberg presses were operating throughout Western Europe, producing vast quantities of written materials from individual pages to pamphlets and books. Number 15. The advent of steel was of great importance. Bronze was the first metal forged for use by humans. However, bronze is relatively weak. Iron was probably smelted throughout the Bronze Age, although it was seen as an inferior metal that was not as hard or durable as bronze. The use of iron became more widespread after people learned how to make steel, a much harder metal made by heating iron with carbon. Around 1800 BC, a people along the Black Sea called the Chalybes began using iron ore to create sturdy wrought iron weapons with around 0.8% carbon. Cast iron with about 2 to 4% carbon was first made in ancient China around 500 BC. The Chinese metalworkers built large furnaces to smelt iron ore into a liquid and poured this into carved molds. Around 400 BC, Indian metalworkers invented a smelting method that used a clay receptacle called a crucible to hold the molten metal. The workers put bars of wrought iron and pieces of charcoal into the crucibles, then sealed the containers and inserted them into a furnace. This wrought iron melted and absorbed the carbon in the charcoal. When the crucibles cooled, they contained ingots of pure steel, a much stronger, less brittle metal than iron. The later development of the blast furnace led to even stronger steel. British engineer Henry Bessemer developed a process that blasted air through molten pig iron to create carbon-free, pure iron in 1856 AD. The famous invention of the Bessemer process paved the way for the mass production of steel, making it one of the world's biggest industries. Now steel is used in the creation of everything from bridges to skyscrapers. Number 14. Transistors are vital for modern electronics. The transistor is an essential component in nearly every modern electronic gadget. In 1926 AD, Julius Lilienfeld patented a field effect transistor, but the working device was not feasible as it was. In 1947 AD, John Bardeen, Walter Brattain and William Shockley developed the first practical transistor device at Bell Laboratories. The trio was awarded the 1956 Nobel Prize in Physics for this invention. Transistors have since become a fundamental piece of the circuitry in countless electronic devices, including televisions, cell phones, and computers, making a remarkable impact on technology. Number 13. Antibiotics have saved countless lives. Antibiotics have saved millions of lives by killing and inhibiting the growth of harmful bacteria. Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch first described the use of antibiotic drugs in 1877 AD. In 1928, Alexander Fleming identified penicillin, derived from a mold species. Throughout the 20th century, antibiotics spread rapidly and proved a significant living improvement, fighting nearly every known infection and protecting people's health. But their overprescription and use could soon render them ineffective. Number 12. The invention of the wheel was a big deal. The wheel is an original engineering marvel and one of the most famous inventions. This basic technology not only made it easier to travel, but also served as the foundation for a vast number of other innovative technologies. However, interestingly, the wheel is not that old. The oldest known wheel is from Mesopotamia, around 3500 BC. By then, people had made metal alloys, built canals and sailboats, and made complicated instruments like harps. This delay is because the primary intention here was not the wheel itself, which was likely invented the first time someone saw a rock rolling along, but the combination of a wheel and a fixed axle that allows the wheel to be connected to a stable platform. Without the fixed axle, the wheel has minimal utility. Number 11. The harnessing of X-rays was a major medical advancement. Since X-rays are a natural phenomenon, nobody can claim to have invented them. But the development of the X-ray machine is undoubtedly one of the epoch-making advancements in medicine, and they were discovered by accident by physicist Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen. While testing whether cathode rays could pass through some glass, he noticed a glow from a nearby chemically coated screen. Because of the unknown nature of the rays, he named them X-rays. Through his observation, he learned that X-rays could be photographed when they penetrate human flesh. In 1897 AD, X-rays were used during the Balkan War to find bullets and broken bones inside patients. In 1901 AD, he received the Nobel Prize in Physics for his work. Number 10. Television has changed many aspects of our lives. The invention of the television was the work of many individuals. Although TV plays an integral part in our everyday lives, it rapidly developed during the 19th and 20th centuries as a result of the work of several people. In 1884, a 23-year-old German university student, Paul Julius Gottlieb Nipkow, patented the image rasterizer, a spinning disc with a spiral pattern of holes, so each hole scanned a line of an image. The first demonstration of the instantaneous transmission of images was by Georges Regnault and Fournier in Paris in 1909 AD. In 1911 AD, Boris Rosing and his student Vladimir Zworykin created a system that used a mechanical mirror drum scanner to transmit crude images over wires to a cathode ray tube or in a receiver. But the system was not sensitive enough to allow moving images. In the 1920s, Scottish inventor John Logie Baird used the Nipkow disc to create a prototype video system. In 1925 AD, Baird gave the first public demonstration of televised images in motion. Number 9. The camera was another significant technological development. This modern invention has witnessed many phases of evolution: camera obscura, daguerreotypes, dry plates, calotypes, SLRs, and DSLRs. In 1826 AD, Joseph Nicephore Niepce used a sliding wooden box camera made by Charles and Vincent Chevalier to click what is credited as the first permanent photograph. With technological advancements, digital cameras were introduced, which saved images on memory cards rather than using film. The history of the digital camera began with Eugene F. Lally's idea to take pictures of the planets and stars. Later, Kodak engineer Stephen Sasson invented and built the first digital camera in 1975 AD. It was built using parts of kits lying around the Kodak factory. The camera was about the size of a bread box, taking 23 seconds to capture a single image. Number 8. The computer is, possibly, the greatest invention of the last millennium. In the early 19th century, the father of the computer, Charles Babbage, conceptualized and invented the first mechanical computer. From those first tentative steps, the journey to the modern computer began. Although there's no single inventor of the modern computer, the principles of modern computer science were set out by Alan Turing in his seminal 1936 paper on computable numbers with an application to the Entscheidungsproblem. Today, computers stand as the symbolic representation of the modern world. Number 7. Email is an often overlooked significant invention. Most developers of early mainframes and mini-computers developed similar but often incompatible mail applications. Over time, these became linked by a web of gateways and routing systems. Many US universities were part of the ARPANET, which increased software portability between its systems. That portability helped make the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, SMTP, increasingly influential. The first ARPANET email was sent in 1971. A.D. Ray Tomlinson is credited with inventing one common feature of the email system that we know today. In 1972 AD, while working as an ARPANET contractor, Tomlinson used the @ symbol to denote sending messages from one computer to another. By the mid-1970s, email had taken on the form we recognize today. In the present day, most official business communication depends on email. Number 6, the Internet has changed the world. Like other inventions, the Internet has no single inventor. Instead, it has evolved. It originated around the 1950s, along with the development of computers. The first workable prototype of the Internet came in the late 1960s, with the creation of ARPANET, or the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. ARPANET adopted the TCP/IP protocols in 1983, and from there, researchers began to assemble the network of networks that became the modern Internet. Number 5. The World Wide Web is the modern-day equivalent of the printing press. The Internet is a networking infrastructure, whereas the World Wide Web is a way to access information over the Internet medium. The father of the World Wide Web is the British computer scientist and legend Tim Berners-Lee. The web was initially conceived and developed to meet the demand for automated information sharing between scientists in universities and institutes worldwide. Tim Berners-Lee wrote the first proposal for the World Wide Web in March 1989 and a second proposal in May 1990. Berners-Lee worked with Belgian systems engineer Robert Cailliau to formalize the proposal, including describing a World Wide Web in which hypertext documents could be viewed by browsers. By the end of 1990, Berners-Lee had the first web server and browser up and running at CERN. Only a few users had access to the computer platform that ran the browser, so development soon started on a more Spartan browser, which could run on any system. Number 4. The ATM lets you get your cash on demand. The invention of the ATM, automated teller machine, is significant to modern banking. According to the ATM Industry Association, ATMIA, there are millions of ATMs installed worldwide. Customers can make various transactions using an ATM, such as cash withdrawals, check balances, or credit mobile phones. Many experts believe that the first ATM was the creation of Luther Simjian, called Bankograph. In 1967, John Shepard Barron led the team that came up with a bright idea of a money vending machine implemented by a London bank called Barclays. These machines used single-use tokens that had been impregnated with radioactive carbon-14. The machine detected the radioactive signal and matched it against a personal identification number entered on a keypad. Soon, rival cash dispenser systems began to emerge, including one that used a reusable plastic card instead of a radioactive token. Dallas engineer Donald Wetzel is said to have devised the first automated banking machine used in the US number 3. The telephone and mobile phones have shrunk the world telephone history, conceivably started with the human desire to communicate far and wide. "Mr. Watson, come here, I want you," were the immortal first words ever spoken on a telephone. Alexander Graham Bell said them on March 10, 1876 AD, to his assistant Thomas Watson. This moment would change communications forever. With the arrival of the mobile phone in the 1980s, personal communications were no longer shackled to cables. The clever invention of the cellular network supported the revolution of the telephone industry. From bulky mobile phones to ultra-thin handsets, mobile phones have come a long way. John F. Mitchell and Martin Cooper of Motorola demonstrated the first handheld device in 1973, starting a technological revolution we still live in today. Number 2, the robot has and will continue to change the world. Robotic devices perform complicated, repetitive, and sometimes dangerous tasks. The word robot first appeared in R.U.R. Rossum's Universal Robots, a play written by Czech playwright Karl Čapek in 1921. Coincidentally, the word robotics was popularized by a science fiction writer, Isaac Asimov, in his short story Runabout, published in 1942. But robots have a very long history. Around 3000 BC, mechanical human figurines were used to strike the hour bells in an Egyptian water clock. This marked the first mechanical design. As time flew, more designs and devices evolved. The foundation for modern robots was laid in the 1950s by George C. Deville, who invented and patented a reprogrammable manipulator called Unimate. In the late 1960s, Joseph Engelberger acquired the patent to the Unimate and modified them into industrial robots. For this, he is often called the father of robotics. They are genuinely inventions that change the world and are only just getting started. Number 1. Guns have been a force for good and bad. Weapons have been used since the dawn of humanity. But it is undeniable that guns and gunpowder have revolutionized the world. Gunpowder was invented in China around the 9th century, but it may have originally been used for fireworks initially. One early firearm consisted of a bamboo tube that used gunpowder to fire a spear and was used in China around 1000 AD. Another early type of portable firearm was the fire lance, a black powder-filled tube attached to the end of a spear and used as a flamethrower. Shrapnel was sometimes placed in the barrel so that it would fly out together with the flames. Gunpowder was made more potent by increasing the amount of saltpeter. This, in turn, meant that a more robust barrel was needed. The bamboo was replaced by metal, and the projectiles were replaced by smaller pieces of metal that fit into the barrel more tightly. By the mid to late 14th century, knowledge of gunpowder and firearms had reached Europe, and smaller, portable handheld cannons were developed, creating a type of personal firearm. The problem of needing to reload frequently was solved with the invention of a hand-driven machine gun called the Gatling gun. Richard J. Gatling invented it during the American Civil War. As the tech has continued to evolve, each following model has become more deadly. That's it for today. We will meet with another interesting topic very soon.